Hello, and thank you for tuning into the frequency of a new awareness. Today, we are going to look further down the history, the timeline, and look at the Cathars and how they related to the Catholic Church and vice versa. The Cathars were entering the history books in the 11th century, and they were located in the south of France in the Languedoc region. I'm apologizing to all you French people for pronouncing these regions probably pretty wrong, but that's where they appeared. And they called themselves Cathars, or it was because Cathars come from the Greek and it means the pure ones. They called themselves the pure ones, and there were other movements throughout history that taught the same thing. We know of groups like the Manichaeans, Patarians, the Gnostics, Paulicians, Bogomils, and Albigenses. That's the group in south of France where we are now referring to as the Cathars. It's easier to pronounce. But all these groups uh, existed throughout time and were basically teaching the same thing, just with small and little variations. So the history that is distributed by the Catholic Church says that, okay, the Manichaeans were the first ones to appear in the Roman Empire still. They were dealt with by the Catholic Church and the Romans because back then it was a state religion and everybody who was not Catholic was persecuted and killed or, you know, whatever they do there. And a remnant moved to uh, Bulgaria, where the Bogomils appeared later in time, and then the Orthodox Church there dealt with them, and a remnant moved from there to the south of France and started the Albigenses, and some of them went to northern Italy, and then to the territory of Belgium and Germany and formed groups, and all throughout history there was this movement of people and teaching. But it is not very likely. And why? Because even the Catholic Church mentions that the Cathars of south of France could be, even though it might be very unlikely, could be connected to the first century Christians. This comes from a Catholic website, so, oh, but it's very likely because Jesus, before he died, gave the Great Commission for his apostles and disciples to go in all the world and teach his teachings. We know record shows and puts the apostle Thomas, he went to India. We know that the apostle James went to the north of France, parts of Europe, because there is a great pilgrimage path, the El Camino de Santiago, very well known pilgrimage route. And could it be that they all went to these different places and started movements and pockets of followers of the way and taught what Jesus taught? And it just happened so that they were dealt with it throughout different times in history because of different sizes. And the Cathars were the biggest group yet to be dealt with by the Catholics because they were the last ones. They had over 1,000 years to develop into this big society that was challenging the Catholic Church. So, what did they teach? Were the foundation? And there it becomes again very interesting We just need to have logical reasoning here to figure this out. They taught the ancient concept of duality as it is mentioned in the Old Testament and the ancient Judeo writings. Yes, and I made a video about the ancient concept of duality at a previous time in preparation of this video. So go there and learn the details and so forth. So we don't go into the details here again. But they taught this, the Cathars, taught this concept of duality. Even the Catholic Church says that this is the foundation of their teaching. Now, the question is, how did this teaching of duality get into Europe? The Europeans didn't have this. They had tribes and, I mean, they were barbaric. They had their own gods and to worship, but nothing close to this ancient wisdom. The Jews had it, the ancient Jews, and they probably brought it with them out of Egypt. So how did this knowledge get to Europe? The Catholic Church did not teach this. So how did it get there? The only way is through an apostle or disciple of Jesus. And we can see it in a way that they taught it. They acknowledged, again, in the concept of duality, there is a good kingdom, the bad kingdom. The spiritual God is the God of good, and Satan, the ruler of the earth, is this evil. So everything in this human experience is evil. And the question is now, how do I get into this kingdom, good kingdom of God? And they taught that you can get into oneness with God while you're alive. And they did it the same way as the ancient Jews, becoming by doing. But they evolved it one step further. The ancient Jews had the law, and it was told them you had to obey the law to enter the kingdom. You have to, by telling them, by force. They were told to do good because the law says so. They were mandated to do good. The Cathars did the same concept, becoming by doing. They had the awareness that they wanted to do it. They chose to do the right thing in order to reach oneness with God, to higher consciousness awareness and be one with God. So how did they do it? The basic approach was that they said, everything on this earthly plane, everything what people do here is evil. So we stop participating in this earthly life as much as possible. And what was going on back then? A lot of killing, lying, cheating, manipulating, all this swearing. They observed it and said, no, we don't participate in this. So, if you choose not to do evil and bad, and you had to do something, what is the other option? To do good. Because they chose it. They chose to do good. And when you are dedicated yourself, just like in the Catholic Church was a priest who was a teacher. At the movement of the Cathars, they were the parfaits, or French, perfect. And they taught as well, or they had the belief to abstain from sexual activity and to procreate, because they said, this world is evil. Why should I bring children into this world to participate in this evil? Then I'm becoming like an accomplice in crime. I'm causing another human being to have the experience of pain and suffering. So these people abstained from sexual activity because they chose free will choice for themselves. And the priests, on the other hand, it was put upon him. He had no choice. He had to abstain. So there is free will choice and no choice. So that is what they believed, that you could do good and abstain from this evil world and enter into the good kingdom of God, meaning into a higher consciousness awareness. And legend has it that there is a treasure of the Cathars somewhere. But these people did not embrace any material objects or possessions, nor money. It was not the desire because it was part of this earthly life. So they, not me, so they stayed poor. So what could this treasure be? Could it be a key into the kingdom of God? So we don't know, but it's very likely. So through doing this, they had this conviction of oneness with God. And we get closer into this during the Crusades and the Inquisition of the Catholic Church, what they did and how the Cathars reacted towards it. Now we know the basic concept of duality in which the Cathars believed in. But how did it express itself in daily life? And how did it relate to the teachings of the Catholic Church? So let's take a quick look. The Cathars believed that the God of the universe was not the God of this world. The God of this world is evil, and they try to remove themselves from the physical life as much as possible, and not to be attached to this world of evil in order to return to the pure world of God, the world of spirit. They believed they came from the world of spirit. They believed that the good God is the God of love, peace, and order. The good God was the God of all immaterial things, such as light and souls. The bad God was the God of all material things, including the world and everything in it. They believed that the bad God captured the souls and imprisoned them in bodies through the process of conception. So that's why they taught that it's better to abstain from sex and to bring more people into this world in order to suffer. But it was not a law. It was still the freedom to choose. Freedom of choice stood above all. So, as the Cathars put it, we are all divine sparks, even angels, imprisoned in a tunic of flesh. And by leading a good and conscious life, human beings, or rather their souls and spirits, could win freedom from imprisonment and return to heaven, the immortal realm of the good God. So therefore, they did not eat meat because they believed that every living thing has a divine spark and ultimately wants to return to the source. That is why the Cathars did not believe in killing and lived a life of non-violence and harmony with nature. So what did they think about the Catholic Church? The Cathar stand was that the Catholic Church put unnecessary pain and penance on the people, and that salvation is in the hands of the individual. In applying this knowledge of Jesus, to get from the good kingdom to the bad, from the bad kingdom to the good kingdom, to raise the consciousness awareness to oneness with God. So that is what they believed. It was an individual choice, and included action. And that suffering was inheriting in the world because it was this evil kingdom. And the human experience included pain and suffering because the world is evil and had nothing to do with human sin. So that's what the Catholic Church taught, that suffering has to do because you're sinning. And the Cathars said no, because it's just part of life. So then even the violence of the Catholic Church only made the Cathar people more convinced of their truth, that the world is evil and wicked, and the things of this world only inflict pain and suffering. And it made them more determined to pursue the God within the individual and to pursue the knowledge of the heart. Salvation was not found in a church that called up armies to eliminate the true believers, but to honor the individual soul in God. They viewed the Catholic Church as the Church of Wolves, or the synagogue of Satan. So that was obviously not going well with the Catholic Church, but we'll look at this at a later time. But there we can see that the viewpoint of the Cathars and the Catholics were radically different, and that the Cathars did not hold back on what they believed, and this attitude of humility, so to speak, and the truthfulness had a very big impact on the people around them. You see, that attitude not only attracted the peasant class, but also the nobility and the merchant class. So the nobility provided and supported Cathar communities, and they started to convert from Catholicism to Cathar belief. So this was getting very, very dominant, and in the 11th century, when the Catholic Church started to pay attention to them, it was already outnumbering the Catholics. But the Catholics and the Protestants, not the Protestants, but the Cathars, lived a peaceful life together. They lived in harmony. And it was only that the violence was brought in there and the uproar, because the Vatican and the institution of the Catholic Church paid attention. So, but in our next video, we get to this. So the Cathars dominated with their belief, and it was a high rate of education there. They taught how to read and write, and in the Languedoc region, the nobility and the peasants, everybody has access to reading and writing and to education, a certain form of education, whatever was possible at the time. But the rest of Europe was kept dumb. Only the Catholic priests could read and write. So when nobody else can read and write, people are easy to manipulate. But that didn't happen. You know, the foundation of the University of Toulouse was laid during that time. So it was very dynamic. The whole region was blessed because principles of the universe, of oneness with God, was applied, and therefore people were blessed. They lived a relatively good life because the teaching brought them away out of pain and suffering, or a way how to deal with it, and to bring an inner conviction. So this rounds up the Cathar movement and what they believed and how they related to the Catholic Church. So now, in our next video, we're going to look at how the Catholic Church reacted and what they did. So let's stay tuned. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you.